Conversations with your girl T Adeyemo. What an evening! What an evening! My laptop just crashed. I will take it somewhere to get fixed. And the next edition will actually have songs. My intro for our next guest was meant to be a Mela Freak song, Not Alone. Unfortunately, I cannot play that song. Again, I'm going to have to get you to go listen to it. Without much ado, she is Odion Welch, born and bred in Edmonton. She is an Amazon internationally recognized best-selling author for novel Breakthrough. She's a current curator of the mental health program at the Africa Center. She's a lot to so many of us. She is our dear sister. Yes, and we're coming to talk about your books in a minute. That's why you're here. She's Odion Welch. Hello, hello, hello.
Hey T, how's it going?
It's going quite well, and what a night! What a night! What a night! What a night! Why are you in your car? You told me I want you to tell. I guess was the big thing you're doing tonight.
Well, it's my goddaughter's christening tomorrow morning, so tonight is the prep.
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying to be the godmother with the mostest, and it's funny because I've been saying that I'm like the godmother with the most flair, and then I'm in all black today, and I came in the tailwind of Jacqueline talking about all black, and I was like, oh man. I'm thinking, oh, there's a ring light here. I was like, you can't have me after New York Fashion Week on a Saturday night kind of mum mode here.
No, to be honest, it caught me too because other than purple, most other times I'm in a bland black color. But I should start doing bright yellows, green, orange. But I don't know. You've just written a book. I've been following your digital footprint in prep for this. It's called Breakthrough, a courageous true story of overcoming depression and anxiety. For those who do not know you, let us start this conversation. I know it's a bit freezing in your cold, so just in your car, maybe just.
I have like the heat that I rotate, so if you randomly hear like a little, then that's my heater.
That's your heater. Oh, nice. Okay, good. So I shouldn't feel so bad then. Okay, tell us. All right, sis. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump right into your book.
That's always a loaded question. That tell me a little bit about yourself. I'm like, how much time do you have? As a mixed race woman, I wear lots of different hats. And I've had the privilege of wearing a lot of different hats, being a first generation Canadian. I recently just graduated with my master's. And so to be like a child who came from poverty and literally utmost depression, which is what I wrote my book about, to now being this kind of happy, fulfilled Canadian citizen, it's been a really interesting journey. And all of that has been an accumulation of people that I've met, my experiences, my involvement in the community. And yeah, that's how I'm going to answer that question today.
Okay, and now because when people see you, the first thing they see is the first thing I saw was she's mixed race, she's beautiful, my goodness, she's intelligent. And then now you've written this book. Are people still reading?
What do you mean, are people still reading? I hope so. You have a whole, I think that's a huge bookshelf behind you.
Do you know what? Since I had my daughter, I've not read like I used to read. So I just buy, and there's a lot still. There's a gap in my knowledge based on the lack of books I've not read, but I've got a lovely app on my phone, Script, and there's a book I've been reading. I read a couple of pages and it sends me straight to bed. So I try.
Yeah, we become a society that either loves reading or doesn't. And I know for myself, I write and I go through phases where I don't even want to look at a book. I only want to look at Netflix. And then all I want is a book. Don't put me anywhere near the TV. I'm like, I write and love reading. Yeah. And so it's an interesting journey. And I think what's most interesting is how people interpret books in different ages and places in their life. So when I wrote my book, my goal was to really I wanted people to know they are not alone. especially if they were an underrepresented group and they were a female. Because when I went through the journey of accessing resources, it was really isolating on top of already being depressed and anxiety. And so it was supposed to be kind of like a you're not alone, self-help guide, know the resources, let's kind of challenge what society says. But then I found that when older people read the book, and by older, I kind of mean like that 50 plus age group. So no offense to the 50 pluses, but like 16-year-olds read my book. So there's this gap here. They would say to me, that was the most depressing autobiography I ever read.
Oh, wow.
And I would just think, wow, okay. All right. And then a 16-year-old come up to me, or a 30-year-old, and be like, that was so great. I didn't know about some of these resources. And then when men read it, men are like, oh, that's what like Black women are thinking. And you're like, what? So we can talk about like, are people reading, but I think it's almost important to ask, like, who is doing the reading now?
Yeah, and the topic you write about is such a big one: breakthrough, a courageous story of overcoming depression and anxiety. And as I was prepping for this, I stopped for a thing to play with MetaQuest 2. I don't know if you know what MetaQuest 2. I experienced it today. Is that fancy Facebook virtual reality thing that you wear?
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And I had severe anxiety when it was done with me. I just had to leave it because I was on a roller coaster, and it felt like I was on a roller coaster for real. And then the roller coaster dropped me, and I had to just let that thing go because it gave me anxiety. Now, is this the kind of anxiety?
And but it's true. Like, our experiences have an effect on us. Like, it's like when we wake up from a bad dream and we're spooked all day. Like, it's just like, as a society, we make it seem like anxiety is like someone who's like locked in the corner freaking out or this kind of thing. And anxiety happens in like everyday portions of our life, and it's just the level that it shows up and its ability to like incapacitate us. Right. And until I think we all acknowledge that we all experience anxiety in some way, shape, or form, or depression in some way, shape, or form, and it looks different at different times, we're not really going to like break through the stigma that our society has. You know?
Why are we not talking about it? Why would I feel ashamed maybe to tell an employer, look, when you say certain things is triggering for me, it makes me want to go see my car and cry. It makes me want to reach for the ice cream, reach for some ice cream and eat my way out of this. Why are we still, taping around it, but not talking about, not hitting it hard as a society?
Because it's invisible. Like, and there's no, I think, like, I can say it's invisible, and there's so many reasons. Do you know what I mean? Like, we could look at the systematic issues of profiting in pharmaceutical drugs and those kinds of things, or the shame that exists, or how media portrays depression and anxiety. And so much of our opinions come from media, whether we want to say it or not. And our lack of understanding, like in the 60s, they were still like putting needles through people's eyes because they thought they were going through hysteria. And you have to think, like, there's people like, I'm going to go to this church tomorrow. There's going to be people who were alive for that. And so we have that, but it's so invisible. I tore my tendon in my foot this summer. And when I tell people, oh, I hurt my foot, they'd be like, okay, yeah, you're fine. And then they'd see this big foot boot that I was in. And all the compassion and all the care came in. But when you're like, hey, I'm feeling some emotions, it's kind of like, get over it, smile, put on a face, go do this. And especially when we look in the Black community, like, we are conditioned in so many ways to be strong, right? Like, Black don't crack. And there is a fabulous, why I'm forgetting her name right now, but there's a counselor who's based out of Calgary who started in Britain. And she does this great presentation about, we say Black don't crack, but Black does crack. And especially in our mentality, right? But we're always, trying to be the strong thing. And then as women, heaven forbid we're having a bad day as a Black woman. Now we're crazy, right? Now we're angry. Now we're irrational. But every time we stand up to it, we break it a little bit more. right?
Mm.
And so, but we need more people to come forward, and we need more people to be empathetic, because on the other side of it being invisible is the fact that when you come forward and you're like, hey, I'm going through stuff, if the first few reactions you get aren't the best, you're not really coming forward about it. You're going back into your hole, you're filling it with shame and this and that. And so that's when it comes in the fact that we don't have enough preventative education, but we don't have enough support education.
Mm.
If I say to somebody, you know, I'm grieving something right now, and the best words, like Brene Brown does it wonderfully, is like, okay, what do you need from me? But instead, it's like I could say to Bob the Builder, I always use Bob the Builder as my example since I do a lot of work with kids. I'll say, oh, well, I got over in like a week. Like, I don't get why that's upsetting you, right? And grief is so, like, I use the example of grief and depression because grief isn't just like, oh, a family member died. Grief is associated in like the grief of ourselves, right? And our ego. Like, we strive to be all these wonderful things. And let's say it's like you didn't get the job you wanted. There's going to be a grief and depression associated with that. And depending on the tools and supports that you have available, you can either kind of bounce back from that really quick, or it can send you down in a spiral. Like if this is your 20th job rejection, you don't know how you're paying the bills. Maybe you're feeling some type of way, you're going through it with your spouse, this, and this. And then it's like, and you say to someone like, oh, I didn't get this job, I'm really upset. Oh, well, get over it kind of thing. People don't get jobs all the day. So it's the, I answered in so many ways to say that it's invisible. We don't talk about it, and we don't support people when they talk about it. So it ends up being this kind of, everybody gets hit in different ways.
And I just want to walk you back a bit. Black don't cry. This idea also, black women don't cry. But what I'm finding,
black don't cry, black doesn't do anything that isn't perfect, you know?
Yeah. But even amongst women to women, I personally I found we're not empathetic. Is that the word? We don't show enough compassion or kindness to one another. And going back to your illustration, what I think I find is okay, so I tried to this is my 20th job application. Oh, yeah, that's making you sad. Well, I can show you 50 letters of rejection and look at me today, I'm okay. And that sort of does not validate the feelings. And many of us who come here to Canada as adult immigrants, so many of us face discrimination, one based on the way we speak, based on our qualifications, the idea that some doctors have to write the English exam coming from a country where they speak English, and so on and so forth. And you find it in subtle ways where you want to get ahead and you can't get ahead. And this takes me back to what we're saying about things that trigger. You want to get a loan for a car. You've been turned down so many times. You're tired of driving your 2001, your 2001 nightmare, and you want to upgrade a little. But when you get into that bank, something is going to go wrong. So you're already sweating and needing the bathroom before you go into the bank to ask, or before you go to the dealership to get this. Because I want you to speak about the different shades, that new immigrants or immigrants encountered this discrimination and how it's directly tied to triggering anxiety, which then I believe leads to depression, because this thing is real.
Oh, it's a spiral. It's all interconnected. And you said it so perfectly. It's like they get enough rejection. You're like, what are we supposed to do? And I say we generally, but there's this image that like, okay, once you get to Canada, the immigration process stops. And it doesn't. You now are like, hey, I'm new. I live here and I'm lost all the time. Okay. I grew up in Edmonton and I'm like, where's the address? What area of the city is that? And so you're completely new, and your license might not have converted over. Now you have to get your social insurance number, do this, do that. And then on top of that, you're worried about becoming a citizen, because if you don't, there's certain jobs that make it easier to get your citizenship. So you're worried about the job that you're working at. The job might be on the other side, and then you do need this car. And so you go through all those levels of rejection, and what you described perfectly is a form of anxiety that I got to go to the bathroom and pee, even though I didn't really pee. Why do I feel like I got to poop? Even I can't eat. I'm nauseous. I'm snapping at somebody. I'm irritable. I'm scared. I'm crying. I've sweated through my clothes. And so like that anxiety is completely normal. But then when you, so I'm gonna use the continent of Africa, for example, since, we're ladies corner. And, so there's over 210 languages, I believe it is. It's like 222 languages in the continent of Africa. So, and out of those languages, I believe it's only 20% that have a word for depression or anxiety.
Oh, wow.
So then you come to Canada and you have all these feelings and emotions that you don't really have to deal with this type of rejection or this type of anything back home necessarily. It's different. You're used to it. You're acclimatized to it. You've done it for 20 years. Now you're starting all over again, and you have to rebuild your resiliency depending on the resiliency that you have. And so now you've got, now you're in the position where, okay, I just immigrated to Canada. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't have the language for the feelings that I'm experiencing. I might not feel safe in general. Who's my people? Who's my community? Because community is the first thing that we want when we're going through that. And it becomes a spiral, right? Like it's, I had a good friend and she didn't know what to do because her friend had immigrated from Africa and had recently had a baby. And it was like her second baby and she couldn't handle it. Her postpartum was unbelievably deniable, but it was because from the area that she was from, and I can't remember which country, so I'm just going with the continent in Africa. When you have a baby, everybody pretty much moves in. And in Canada, you have a baby and everybody pretty much moves out.
That's right.
So she went from having this huge support. Now she's on EI, which is like 10% of her income. Her spouse is like not really sure what he's supposed to do because, the man doesn't really come in for the first few months. And you're like, and our system is kind of set up to like, well, everybody else does it. Right. And our system, unfortunately, doesn't look at the cultural balance, and it's getting better. I've seen the improvements, but it doesn't look at that. And so it kind of falls back on us. Like it falls on us as women, regardless of our race, to look at another woman, especially when they're from a different area, and say like, what help do you need? Right. And to not even say like, hey, do you need help or what help do you need? Because you don't know what you don't know. And to come in, as I say, to not have the language and not have this, might not know what you need, but maybe just take that initiative. Like, hey, what's it like? Ask questions. What's it like when you have a baby back home? Right? Like, what was the difference in Canada and here? Okay, community, you know what? I can pop by your house on Tuesdays at 7 and grab McDonald's. Right? Like, there's things that we can do that can help until our like healthcare system can realize that like we need a baby support group that isn't going to charge us $200. Like those baby support groups are crazy to me. Like Mummy and Me, $20 for dropping Mummy and Me, and you're like, what? Just come to my house and have tea.
Can I just ask people just tuning in? I know some, when we had a crash, we lost several of you. So could you just like and maybe subscribe? Actually, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We were doing great work here. Odion, have you subscribed to our YouTube channel, Ladies Corner Canada?
I'm gonna say yes, but I'm gonna double check as soon as I'm off of this because I'm not on my computer. Because I'm on my phone. There's only so much that I can do. But I do actually. I have last month's issue in my car right now, or last semester. Hang on, let me prove it.
Okay. So for people just joining in, please like and subscribe to the website and to the YouTube channel. Thank you so very much, and we love you very much. Now, for all the love you show. Now the winter months are creeping in. Actually, before I get on to that question, what you said is really nice. What can we do? Ask how I can help. I suppose most fundamentally, people just need to be kind. Many times, I think it's just a question of being kind. I think many times people feel, I don't want to overstep. I don't want to pride.
Overstep.
I don't want to.
Over,
I want to mind my own business.
overstep.
This is Canada. People mind their own business.
No, but if you don't ask, there's a great TED Talks. It's the rejection challenge.
Yeah.
This Asian guy who's just and he intentionally like he goes to McDonald's and asks for a fry refill. Like some of it's silly, but like as much as it hurts and as much as you're like, oh my gosh, that asking, you just never know what door it's gonna open, right? And nothing might happen. And I know, like if you talk to my therapist will tell you I'm hyper independent. But I have to be mindful that like when I ask and someone doesn't respond in the way that I want, that it's okay to ask somebody else.
Okay.
And I have to be mindful that if I ask someone, hey, do you need help with this? And they say no, that has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Right. And there's ways where it's like, if you can really see that somebody's struggling, like that you can still help. I know I talk about it in my book. I say, if it's so bad, I don't care if you have to put like a potato in their tailpipe and I get them to ask you for a ride and then secretly drive them to wherever it needs to go. But sometimes it's like we get caught up in our own heads so easily that you can just tell, like if you're at your friend's house, because there's our resources, we need them for our mental health, and you go to grab a drink from the fridge and you see they don't have too much in the fridge, right? It could be super passive, like, you know what, I'm just going to stick like a $50 gift card in their mailbox and not even say it's me. Right? And not like, I don't need the accolades for it. I can just see you need this, right? Or make it like, hey, I just found this new food hamper thing. Oh my God, right? Like, you don't need to make it obvious that you saw.
Yeah.
I think we get so worried about, oh, how am I gonna look? Instead of being like, what does this person do?
I hear what you're saying, Odion, and we're nearly out of time, out of a message. I want you to
There's enough time for them to subscribe.
Yeah, that's still time for them to subscribe. Go, girl. I want you to hold your book and tell us the most important chapter of that book, Breakthrough. I love the cover. The courageous.
It's purple. And my coloring book is purple. I have like a matching supportive coloring book.
So what is the other book though? The 30 days. I didn't know about the other book. What is that?
Let me hold awkwardly. It's called the 30 Days of Gratitude. And so hang on, let me get in the camera.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
And then I think I color in them randomly, but this is it. And so coloring at one point in my life, coloring was the best thing for my anxiety and depression because it recentered me and it made me remember where I was. But I found coloring books to be so, I think exhaustive is the best word, because they're so big, or I couldn't get the colors, or they weren't there when I needed it. And sometimes I would get thoughts while I was coloring, and then I'd have to go find a journal and I'd lose my way because my ADD can kick in. And so I worked to design this coloring book so it fits in my purse. So it's the same size as my book. My head looks really big on this, but it's like, the size of my head.
Okay.
And every day is a different motivational quote. And then there's lines on the bottom so you can write if things come to you.
All right. That's a beautiful idea. That's a beautiful one.
Yeah, I usually give them out to like agencies. Like I work with agencies to distribute them. But yeah, so you say the most important chapter. And
yes, I kind of like how you come in a package. You got the book, you got the workbook on gratitude, and I know I've read it so many times, and you probably agree with me that when you start to feel gratitude, or you start to list what you're grateful for, your mood actually changes. You can maybe sleep out of depression. I think that's the ministry of music. You listen to some music and you start, okay, well, I nearly hit a car yesterday and that didn't happen. Thank you, Jesus. Someone was kind to me. Thank you, Jesus. And this is me here. You start to list all the different, like I'm not insane. I'm in my right mind. I can still find color purple and so on and so forth. And then your mood starts to gradually lift and then you can maybe find the strength. And
I love how you say gradual, because that is the hardest part for me, like working in this field and being committed to this field, is that our media, society, everybody thinks it's a band-aid. And it's not a band-aid, because when we go back to the triggers, they're all layered in. And so it could be 10 things relating to this. So one pill, like, and I always say there's a time and a place for prescriptions, but that might not be what makes it better, right? And like the gratitude exercise is gradual. It's a skill that you're building, right? And it's just not like, it's not a thing. I say if you were, let's say you were obese for most of your life. Let's say for 30 years you were obese since a baby, and you're like, I'm gonna get help. I'm not gonna be obese. I'm gonna get to the next level underneath. And after 3 days, you're like, well, this didn't work. This gym thing didn't work. And I had a trainer once who would say, for every year that you've been the weight you don't want to be, it's going to take at least a month of working out to get back to the weight you want. And I think that's the same way with your mental health. It's gradual. So for every month or every trigger or every trauma, like, then you're going to have to break it down. So if for 10 years you've been depressed and anxious and haven't dealt with it, give it 10 months of trying new things continuously and repeatedly, and you'll gradually see the change. And you might not see the change because we don't ever see it in ourselves, but the people around us will. And when we're surrounded by good people, they'll tell us that.
Okay, so I've got 2 quick questions. Mental health is important, especially as the winter months catch up with us, or we catch up with winter. So what can we do to stay mentally alive on a budget as we approach the darkest season of the year?
Well, one, be grateful, because I have some colleagues up north and they have 30 days of darkness. So we get it just a little bit better. So focus on that. One of the easiest things we can actually do is go to our doctor and ask for a vitamin D prescription. Because we, like, they don't even test in Alberta anymore to see if you're vitamin D deficient.
Yeah.
And because everybody is. So you can ask for a prescription. And when you ask for the prescription, your vitamin D ends up only costing you like $3 a month instead of buying those bottles for $20 a month. And you're actually getting the correct dosage that you need without fillers.
What does that do? What does that do, vitamin D? Does it make you
So
happy?
vitamin D is from, it's from the sun. So, people will get like lights or this, and it helps with calcium absorption. I'll let you guys Google vitamin D. And it's not that sexual kind, because there's always someone who wants to say that. But yeah, vitamin D can go a long way. And so I always recommend getting the prescription, going to your doctor's office. It's going to save you way more money. And just tell, like, some doctors are like, and be like, listen, I have benefits. I want to do it that way. And as Black people, especially, we need on average 8,000 milligrams a week of vitamin D.
Right.
And when winter comes, we're getting like maybe 1,000, because we're locked in our houses. The sun's out for 2 hours. We're usually locked in an office. And I know we're running out of time, so I'll just leave it at the vitamin D and get outside. I know it's cold, but if you are in Edmonton or Calgary or wherever you are, check the winter activities, because they do a lot of really fun, interactive, free activities to get you moving, to stay physically active, and they're affordable, except for, buying the gloves and stuff so you don't lose any fingers.
I've got a question here about just alluding to what you said, get out there. And I know you're socially very busy. You go on your Instagram feed and you're exhausted, just watching all the different places you've been and all the things you get up to. Is meeting more people a way out? Are we likely to get less anxious and less depressed when we meet more people and we open up our lives to the influence of people?
It depends when and where.
All right.
And because like going out, meeting people, developing ourselves can be great, but if we do it in the wrong space, it can hurt. And I think we need to remember that if you just end up in something that's not in alignment with your values or your interests, you can feel really out of place. So a lot of the things that I do are in alignment with my values, or I have a partner who goes with me. My brother's one. See, you've met my brother. My brother gets dragged to things that are a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I want to see this event. So if my brother's with me, it's because I'm actually a little bit nervous. And if like your depression is at that point where you just can't leave your house, then that's okay. But go for a walk outside really quick on the days where it's not -40, because that movement, smelling the crisp air, and just looking at like the beauty that is winter. Because sometimes you'll see like a little bird land, and you'll be like, oh, that bird's doing its thing. It's freezing, and I'm in 8 jackets. Like,
Hmm. All right. Okay. I can We're running out of time. We're out of time. I want you to show our audience your book one final time. And
And
in
everyone can like and subscribe while I show them the book. Oh wait,
yes,
it's back.
yeah, yeah. And then in 30 seconds, where can we find the book to buy? And what is, you talked about vitamin D, you talked about gratitude. What is the one tip to overcoming anxiety that's practical and overcoming depression that you got for us? 30 seconds, go.
30 seconds. Okay. It's easiest to get my book on Amazon. I just encourage everyone to do it that way. But Chapters, Indigo, everywhere but iTunes because I don't understand Apple. Uh, and well, they can read Ladies Corner. That's something. But what I would say is keep trying because depending on where you are and what's going on, you're going to need different resources. And so keep trying them all, even if they're completely outside of the box. Because
Mm,
every one of us is completely different. Where I'm at in my journey, when my depression and anxiety bugs me now, I go for a float tank and meditate. But where I was 20 years ago was I could barely even get to the doctor's office for a prescription. And all I could do was like walk outside and then walk right back inside. Right.
mm,
So I tell people to keep trying because you can go from like literally being in the hospital to being able to go to 80 events a day kind of thing. But you
mm.
got to keep trying the different resources.
You're my sister. You're a beautiful, beautiful soul. I want to say thank you so much. We're out of time. You're the author of Breakthrough, a courageous true story of overcoming depression and anxiety. That's the book right there, and it's on Amazon. Odion, I want to say a big thank you. Thank you so very much for coming on the show. You've been in your car, and your dinner is probably getting cold now. Enjoy the christening of your goddaughter. Thank you again for coming on the
It's
show.
just I have to walk off tonight.
All right then. See you soon, and
Bye.
we'll talk soon.
Like and
Okay, thank
subscribe, everybody.
like and
Bye.
subscribe. Love the way you sing that out. All right then, Etienne. When we come back, we've got Giselle General. She'll be doing. She's our City of Edmonton insider, and she has a lot to tell us. Don't go away.